In The Unbanking of America, How the New Middle Class Survives, Lisa Servon delivers a deeply researched, emotionally rich, and often surprising exploration of the U.S. financial system and why so many Americans are turning away from traditional banks. Rather than simply blaming people for financial missteps or labeling them unbanked or underbanked, Servon turns the lens on the system itself. Through a blend of personal narratives, case studies, and economic analysis, she shows that for millions of Americans, middle class, working class, and poor, traditional banks are not only failing to meet their needs but are actively harmful. The book challenges assumptions about money, trust, and what financial security really means in a system built on exclusion and inequality. Servon begins by embedding herself in the world of alternative financial services. She doesn't just observe, she works behind the counter at a check cashing store in the Bronx and later at a payday lender in California. These first-hand experiences are central to the book's power. She introduces us to customers who use these services not because they're ignorant or irresponsible, but because they've been failed, repeatedly, by mainstream banks. These people want transparency, speed, and control. When a bank account comes with overdraft fees, delays, and arbitrary penalties, a check cashing fee can actually feel like the smarter, more honest option. From the inside, Servon sees that these alternative financial institutions, so often demonized, often treat people with more dignity and clarity than traditional banks do. At check cashing stores, customers know exactly what they're paying and get their money immediately. There are no surprise fees, no bounced checks, and no bureaucratic barriers. This forces a profound question: if mainstream banking is supposedly better, why are so many rational, informed people choosing these alternatives? The answer lies in the lived realities of insecurity, wage volatility, and mistrust that shape financial decisions in the U.S. A major theme throughout the book is precarity. Servon explores how even middle-class Americans are increasingly living with financial fragility, paychecks that fluctuate, savings that are non-existent, and expenses that spiral from small setbacks. The people she interviews are often hard-working, budget-conscious, and disciplined. But they lack the buffers that the traditional financial system assumes people have. When your income varies or your rent is due before payday, you need flexibility, not punishment. She argues that banking systems have not evolved to serve this reality. Instead, they continue to prioritize profit over people, eroding trust in the process. Servon also traces the historical evolution of banking in America. She explains how, over the past few decades, banks have shifted from being community-centered service providers to profit-maximizing corporations. Fees have skyrocketed, customer service has plummeted, and banks have pulled out of low-income neighborhoods entirely. As physical branches disappear and digital systems become more complex, many people are left out, not just those without internet, but those who don't trust or understand increasingly opaque systems. The shift from relationship-based to transaction-based banking has had a deep psychological impact. One of the most powerful ideas in the book is that being banked is not inherently better. Servon argues that the language of financial inclusion often implies that those outside the system need to be brought in or fixed, when in fact it's the system that needs reform. People are not financially illiterate, they are financially adaptive. They're making rational choices in irrational conditions. The problem isn't that they don't understand money, it's that the tools available to them are designed for people with more stability, more privilege, and more cushion. Servon also dives into payday lending, a service that often sparks outrage and moral panic. She acknowledges that these lenders charge high interest rates and can trap people in debt, but she complicates the narrative. She meets borrowers who are fully aware of the costs but still choose payday loans because they have no better options. She meets employees who are not villains but regular people doing a job that meets a real need. Her nuanced approach doesn't excuse predatory behavior, but it pushes the reader to consider why people end up here. It's not always desperation, it's often strategy. Trust comes up repeatedly as a critical factor in people's financial choices. Many of Servon's subjects have been burned by traditional institutions, denied loans, hit with hidden fees, or treated with disrespect. In contrast, They often have long-standing relationships with employees at check-cashing stores or payday lenders. They feel seen, heard, and accommodated. This personal connection may not offer ideal financial outcomes, but it provides something banks often fail to deliver: human dignity and predictability. Technology's role is also explored, especially the rise of fintech solutions like prepaid cards, mobile banking apps, and online lending platforms. Servon sees potential here but also warns that without regulation, transparency, and inclusivity, these tools can replicate the same exclusions as traditional banking. She discusses innovations like the Mission Asset Fund, which reimagines credit building through communal lending practices rooted in trust and culture. These new models suggest that financial systems don't have to be extractive, they can be cooperative and empowering. Servon doesn't offer a one-size-fits-all solution, but she does argue for systemic change. She calls for greater regulation of banks and alternative lenders, transparency around fees, expanded access to fair financial products, and more human-centered service design. Her central argument is that financial services should be built around the lives people actually live, not the idealized versions banks prefer. That means accounting for income volatility, embracing simplicity, and acknowledging the importance of personal connection. The book ultimately reframes what it means to be financially healthy. It's not just about having a credit card or a retirement plan, it's about having tools that actually work in your life. It's about feeling respected and understood. It's about knowing that if something goes wrong, you have options and someone to call. For many Americans, that sense of security is found not at Wells Fargo or Bank of America, but at the neighborhood check-cashing place down the street. By grounding her analysis in real stories, Servon offers a profound challenge to mainstream narratives about money and responsibility. She shows that the people who are unbanked are not marginal or irresponsible, they are millions of everyday citizens navigating a system that wasn't built for them. Their choices are not only logical, they're often wiser than the options being pushed by policymakers and banks. The Unbanking of America is not a book about how to manage your money better. It's a book about how the money system itself needs to change. It's about empathy, design, and the radical act of listening to people who are usually blamed for their own financial struggles. By doing so, Servon creates a compelling case for a more just, human, and flexible financial future, one where people are not just banked but truly served.